The world runs on principles that we humans don't always fully grasp. A single small decision, an action that seems insignificant, or even an accidental mistake can ignite a chain of events no one could have imagined, shaping the course of history itself. This is the true power of the butterfly effect, a concept that may sound like pure science, yet in reality it weaves its way through every corner of human history, shaping the destiny of individuals, families, and entire nations. A gentle flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil could set off a storm in Texas. A random choice could change the course of an entire life. A small scar from the past could rewrite the story of the future. From tiny moments to the great turning points of civilization, all prove one truth: nothing happens by chance. The butterfly effect comes from chaos theory, discovered by mathematician and meteorologist Edward Norton Lorentz. While simulating weather patterns, Lorentz found that even the tiniest change in input data, something as small as rounding a number, could lead to massive, unpredictable shifts in the final outcome. And before we dive deeper into these incredible stories of history shaped by chance, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Worldview Club, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next story that changes the way you see the world. A wrong turn, the fate of the world decided. On June 28, 1914, the plot to assassinate Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary seemed to have failed. The grenade thrown at his car missed its target, injuring only 2 aides. The Archduke should have returned safely to his hotel, but instead he chose to visit the wounded at the hospital. During that fateful trip, the driver accidentally took a wrong turn. On that very street sat Gavrilo Princip, a member of the terrorist group who had failed in an earlier attempt, casually drinking coffee. The moment he saw the Archduke appear before him, Princip drew his gun and fired, killing both Franz Ferdinand and his wife. From a mistake that seemed trivial, an irreversible chain reaction began. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, pulling Germany, Russia, France, Britain, and many other nations into what became the deadliest conflict the world had ever seen, World War I. A rejected dream of art, the world plunges into a nightmare of dictatorship. In 1907, in Vienna, a young man full of passion submitted his application to the Academy of Fine Arts, dreaming of becoming a painter. Yet the admissions board dismissed him, judging that he lacked real talent. That decision, seemingly ordinary, changed the fate of the world in ways no one could have imagined. The rejected applicant was none other than Adolf Hitler. Unable to pursue an artistic career, he fell into poverty, living in slums where extremist thoughts began to take root. When World War I broke out, instead of holding a paintbrush, Hitler joined the German army. After the war, he turned to politics and eventually became one of the most brutal figures in history. If the Academy had accepted his application, perhaps the world would never have endured the horrors of World War II. On September 28, 1918, during a battle between British and German forces in the village of Marcoing, France, Private Henry Tanday spotted a wounded German soldier attempting to escape. He raised his rifle, took aim, but hesitated. Choosing mercy over death, he lowered his weapon and let the man live. No one could have known that the fortunate German soldier was Adolf Hitler. When World War II erupted, the world would realize that Tanday's act of compassion had left humanity to face unimaginable consequences. After millions of deaths in war and the monstrous crimes of genocide, Henry Tanday lived the rest of his life in torment and unshakable regret. In an interview, he bitterly confessed, "I had no idea who that man would become. When I saw innocent civilians being slaughtered, I could only pray to God for forgiveness, for letting him live." A single moment of mercy on the battlefield had, unintentionally, carved a deep and terrible scar into the history of mankind. A work of fiction, a $900 million shock. In 1907, stockbroker Thomas Lawson published a novel titled Friday the 13th. The story drew on superstition surrounding that date, stirring fear within the financial world about the misfortunes it might bring. No one expected that fear to become reality. On an actual Friday the 13th, the U.S. financial market lost an astonishing $900 million, a staggering sum for that era. Investors panicked, few dared to trade. Many even avoided shopping or investing altogether, causing the markets to grind to a halt. From a mere work of fiction, the anxiety spread across America, triggering a psychological chain reaction. And from that moment on, Friday the 13th was etched into the collective memory of humanity as a lasting symbol of misfortune. The death of a dog, the birth of modern terrorism. In 1933, in Texas, a county commissioner named Charles Hazard grew irritated at his neighbor's small dog, which often trampled his flower garden. Instead of seeking a peaceful solution, he chose a cruel one, mixing glass into the animal's food, killing it. What Hazard never imagined was that this act of cruelty would spark a chain of consequences. The dog's owner, a 13-year-old boy named Charlie Wilson, swore he would take revenge. When Hazard ran for re-election, young Wilson went door to door, campaigning tirelessly and persuading 95 voters to oppose him. In the end, Hazard lost by just 16 votes. From that moment, Wilson realized the power of politics, an awakening that changed the course of his entire life. Years later, as a U.S. congressman, he played a pivotal role in lobbying the government to arm the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, enabling them to defeat the Soviet Union. Yet that victory also cleared the path for the rise of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, sowing the seeds of extremism and laying the foundation for the September 11th attacks. A domino chain of history, unimaginable in its reach, all set in motion by the death of a small dog in Texas. The Cuban boy and the Iraq War. On December 30th, 2006, as Saddam Hussein, the former president of Iraq, stood on the gallows, he could never have imagined that his fate had been shaped in part by the destiny of a Cuban boy. That boy was Elian Gonzalez. In 1999, Elian was rescued after his mother and several others perished during a desperate journey across the sea to reach the United States. His story quickly became a political flashpoint, igniting a diplomatic standoff between the U.S. and Cuba. The Clinton administration ultimately decided to return Elian to Cuba, a decision that outraged the Cuban-American community in Florida. That outrage carried directly into the 2000 U.S. presidential election. Cuban-American voters swung heavily toward the Republican Party, giving George W. Bush victory in Florida by just 537 votes. Florida, in turn, delivered Bush the presidency. Had Al Gore won, history might have unfolded differently, but reality placed Bush in the White House, where one of his most consequential decisions was to launch the war that toppled Saddam Hussein. What seemed like a decision concerning only the fate of a Cuban child ultimately helped lead the United States into the Iraq War, shaking the Middle East to its core. A child adrift on the sea had, without knowing it, turned the great wheel of history. A divorce scandal and Barack Obama's road to the White House. The path to the presidency for Barack Obama was anything but easy. Yet, ironically, a marriage scandal unexpectedly opened the door wide for him. In 2004, while running for the U.S. Senate, Obama's main opponent was Jack Ryan, a highly respected candidate. But at a critical moment, Ryan's divorce records were leaked. Within them, his ex-wife, actress Jeri Ryan, revealed that he had pressured her to attend inappropriate parties at exclusive clubs. The revelation shook the media, forcing Jack Ryan to withdraw from the race. With no strong rival left, Obama won easily, paving the way for his remarkable political career. Without that scandal, the world might never have known the first black president in U.S. history. A barroom brawl, the unlikely beginning of Brexit. When Britain voted to leave the European Union in the 2016 referendum, the world was stunned. But few know that the roots of this historic decision trace back to a drunken barroom brawl. In 2012, a Labour Party minister drunk in a Westminster pub lost control. In a fit of rage, he shouted, "This place is full of conservatives." before swinging at anyone in sight. He was arrested on the spot, but arrogantly declared, "You can't touch me, I'm a member of parliament." The scandal pressured the Labour Party to reform its leadership election rules in an attempt to calm public outrage. At the time, Ed Miliband introduced a change allowing anyone to join the party and vote for just $3. Thousands signed up and overwhelmingly voted for Jeremy Corbyn, a hardliner deeply skeptical of the EU. Corbyn would later be accused of failing to campaign effectively for Britain to remain in the EU, a shortfall that heavily contributed to the Remain side's defeat. Had that drunken barroom fight never occurred, Britain might still have been a member of the EU. What seemed like a meaningless pub brawl ultimately set the entire nation on a course toward one of its greatest geopolitical turning points in decades. These stories are living proof of the butterfly effect. Small, seemingly trivial events that set off massive consequences, reshaping history in ways no one could have foreseen. A butterfly's wing beat, a wrong turn, a rash decision. Sometimes these are the very bricks that lay the foundation for an entire century of upheaval. Before you go, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to support our creative team. We'll see you again in the next video.